Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's episode in which we explore a groundbreaking approach to mental health treatment, frequency balance. Claire J. Gilchrist, the visionary behind this transformative modality, joins us to share how frequency balance goes beyond traditional therapy by addressing the root causes of emotional and mental struggles, and also teaches simple, easy, practical tools to manage symptoms on your own when you need to. From anxiety and depression to bipolar, ADHD, and beyond, Claire offers insight into how her work helps empower individuals to become their own guides on the path to wellness. Whether you're a therapist, sufferer, or simply curious about new ways to grow and heal, this conversation could change the way you think about mental health forever. Let's dive in. How are you, Claire?
Hi, well, thanks, Sid. How are you?
I'm awesome.
That's
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. So, where are
Uh-huh.
we going to start today?
Yeah. I'm happy to actually catch up with you, especially it's been a while. So my opening question to you is what inspired you to create frequency balance and how does it differ from traditional therapy modalities?
Okay. So, it's quite a big topic. And gosh, listening to your introduction, I felt quite important, really. Going, "Oh, visionary. It's, I have to say that being a visionary or an innovator, I suppose, which I've become from many years of coaching, counseling, training, etc., etc. It's been quite a journey because you really have to have, I'm going to say the courage, and it
Mhm.
is courage at times, I think, to look at your work, what you're
Mhm.
doing, maybe a little outside of the mainstream and not be scared to see things that maybe other people haven't seen or have seen and research hasn't gone there yet. Um, it's been quite a journey for me, and to be brave enough to stand up and talk about it and own it and go, well, this is very much, what I've found in terms of research. So the inspiration behind frequency balance was really lockdown, to be honest, in 2020. Up to then, in terms of my freelance counseling, coaching, training for many companies or in my own practice, I'd been very busy sort of moving from one thing to the other. And if you finished one job, then you're preparing for another one, or you've got many counseling clients. And lockdown absolutely broke that. We all went into a sort of a
Mm.
hibernation, obviously. And, you were either with a family or you were on your own. I was on my own. So what happened was obviously all my training, in-person training work stopped. And I carried on with my counseling clients, and that was online. And it was the strangest thing in that silence and in that time that you had to reflect and not just move on to the next job or be preparing for something else.
Mm.
I was seeing people who were coming to me mainly for anxiety, which during, a COVID period is not unusual.
Mm.
But the anxiety had a lot of other symptoms linked. And that was without doubt, I could say, with everybody. So someone would come from anxiety and they'd also suffer from depression, or there'd be a little bit of focus issue, or they'd actually been diagnosed as, let's say, full on ADHD. Or they'd come to me for anxiety, and then I found out they were actually diagnosed as bipolar 1 or 2, or with depression, or with anger issues, or with you name it. And I think having the time to reflect on my sessions after I'd given them, I started noticing that all these people seeing me, regardless of what they'd come to me for or what they'd been diagnosed with, were showing me very common behaviors. The way they thought, the way they felt, the way they acted, the way they reacted, and almost the way they believed certain things. And that's when I thought, wait a minute, there's some grand commonality going on here between people with very similar mental health issues, but there's such a commonality in in terms of the way they are
Mm.
somewhere deep down. And that's when I thought, okay, I'm onto something here. And I really started researching in earnest. I think a day that stands out for me is, well, a couple of days really. I devised a questionnaire which I gave to all these guys. And I asked them all the same questions. And irrespective of race, culture, age, upbringing, not being remotely related, I would get exactly the same answer out of all of them. And I remember sitting there thinking, okay, now I'm really onto something. And this is where frequency balance began. Um, it evolved from in-depth research with clients, with their families, with my family. I recognized a lot of the actions, reactions, thought, beliefs, etc., as existing in people I knew and in me. And I'm not diagnosed with ADHD or bipolar, etc., but I did recognize some of the behaviors and some of the symptoms as being quite sort of prevalent in me too. So that's where it all began. Um, I'm just trying to think if there's anything more I want to say on that. I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about, what I actually found, but that was the origin of it in 2020. I'd been a counselor, therapist, trainer, etc., for many years before that. But quite frankly, since then, that is all I have been busy with. And most of the people I've been seeing as clients, until I shut my practice last year to go more deeply, let's say, into research, were bipolar. And I worked in the UK in 2023 with a very severe bipolar client, really delving into this and fine-tuning the system. So it's been my life for a couple of years. And then you'd asked me how it differs from traditional therapy
Therapy
modalities.
modality. Yeah.
Yeah, it differs because it's both diagnostic. It's a great diagnostic tool, and it is curative. It's also obviously to help and to heal. So the first part of it is very much derived from all this research, where I really dug down to the source of many mental health issues. And the interesting thing is that out there in the mainstream world, let's say of psychology, psychiatry, a lot of these mental health issues were actually classified as separate because they manifest in different parts of the body. So if people are studying them in the body, they'll see that they manifest in the brain or in the nervous system, etc. So in the DSM-5, which is your psychiatric classification dictionary in a way, they are classified separately, whereas what I've found is that they are exceptionally related because of these deeply subconscious behavior patterns that link them. So I isolated 48 of these patterns. There may be more, who knows, but I think 48 is a pretty good number to go on to start with. And from this, I kind of deducted that things like, for example, bipolar 1 and 2, ADHD, anxiety, depression, anger, panic, focus issues, mood swings, even something like body dysmorphia and OCD could be looked at as symptoms of the same spectrum. There is a relationship between them. So it's a very different way of looking at it. And if you treat these issues at this deep underlying level, if you treat these patterns, if you transform these patterns, that's where you've got a real chance of healing. So that is my one side of frequency balance. The other side, which I always use first when I'm working with a client, is using very specific, targeted, easy, effective tools to improve the body's stability so that the body is then stable enough to do that deeper work. And I teach anyone I'm working with, and in fact, I'm not really working with one-on-one now. I'm doing courses, and I'm putting together an online course for my website. So I teach you to use them to gain, to regain, to sustain stability anytime you need to on your own, so that you're not just therapy or pill dependent. So that's quite a long answer to probably quite a short question, and it does overlap with some of the other questions, but I'll elaborate a little bit more.
Can you break down the core principles of frequency balance for someone new to energy-based or frequency-based therapies?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I have broken down the core principles. I've been talking about these deeply subconscious patterns. If you heal there, what a good chance you've got to actually heal the issue. And then, of course, using tools to stabilize the body, which is something that one can do anytime, any place. But just to clarify, and I thought this was a good question because it is something I do need to answer. Frequency balance is not an energy-based or a frequency-based healing per se as we know it. So it's not hands-on energy or Reiki or that kind of energetic healing, even though when you're counseling, of course, your healing can be energetic, can take place, in any particular part of your body. So I wanted just to say, when I deal with the patterns in frequency balance, I use talk therapy, and we work to understand your deepest makeup, and changing any of those dysfunctional elements, shall we say, in your deepest makeup is basically balancing your energy. So I'm going to give you an example here just to illustrate, make it a little bit simpler. Let's say you're a performer, like I was many years ago. And let's say you are very talented, but you have a huge ego,
Mm-hmm.
which is not going to stand you in good stead in the industry. If I was working with you, I would work with you on the level of keeping the talent, but minimizing the ego. Now, if I do that, I'm basically changing the frequency of the performer. The energy is the same. You're a performer and you're talented, but we're going to change that negative frequency to a more positive one, let's say by replacing the ego with, I don't know, something like a bit of humility, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm not trying to change black to white. I'm kind of changing gray black to blue black. I
Mm-hmm.
keep the basic energy, but I'm changing the frequency of it. And that's what I do when we work with your deepest subconscious patterning. We look and see what is there, and we change the negative into a more positive, kind of a different version of the same thing. And then, of course, and that's all through talk therapy, that's through counseling. And then, of course, with the tools, I can be doing physical exercises, emotional processing work. So really, it's very related to counseling and the add-on of physical exercises, like breathwork, ground eating for it, emotional processing, etc., etc. So it's not in any way hands-on energy healing, just to answer the question.
Sure. I have a comment here already. Are you okay if I ask you the question from the comment?
Yes, please.
Sure. Okay. This is from Jitin Rishika. Hi, Claire. Thank you for such healing. Can people with other ailments seek such therapy, or is it mainly brain function therapy?
No, it is not brain function therapy. For me, mental health issues do not just exist in the brain. I work on a very holistic level. So, yes, anyone with any issue can seek help from me, because I work on a holistic level. To me, let's say we're looking at deeply subconscious behavioral patterns, they might sit in the cell memory. There's research being done into that. So no, it is certainly not brain function therapy. It is overall therapy to give you exactly what you need to help you. And that's how I've always worked. If someone had anxiety, I won't sit and try and use a particular technique because it's
Hmm.
been classified as brain disorder, for example, which it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I will go through every aspect of your body. And in fact, in some of it, first thing I normally do with any client is check your diet. Do you know how much,
Oh.
let's just say we're talking about anxiety, for example. Do you know how many anxiety cases are caused by eating badly?
Hmm.
So
Wow.
you have to look at the overall body. So, yeah, this is a therapy for anyone.
All right. How does frequency balance address the root causes of mental health issues rather than just managing symptoms?
Okay, it does both. It does both. And I go back to the first question that you asked me. In terms of addressing the root causes of mental health issues, this has been in my research, looking for sources of where does bipolar come from? Where does ADHD come from? Where does some of the related anxiety or depression come from, mood swings, etc. And that's where I located these very deeply subconscious behavioral patterns, and that's where I work to treat those issues at source. I'm not going to go into detail about them now, that's going to come later. This year I'm mainly focusing on the tools, but the amount of healing available when you treat those patterns, when you transform them, is absolutely exponential. So that's the one great thing about frequency balance, is it really gets to the source. But it also helps you manage your symptoms. So let's say you have anxiety and at times you feel a little mood swingy, shall we say. And you battle to, and this, I'm actually describing a real life client of mine, angry, mood swings, never wanted to work, huge focus issues, diagnosed ADHD, diagnosed dyslexia, right? And just using simple tools, I could get a stability to a level that we could start looking at the deeper work. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples later on, actually, and sorry, I have made some notes here that I am looking at. Managing symptoms is incredibly important. If these deeply subconscious behavioral patterns cause a lot of symptoms, like highs, lows, mood swings, anxieties, depressions, focus issues, etc., you've also got to help those symptoms. And frequency balance does just that with what I call my toolbox. And those are the courses that I'm teaching at the moment. I am making one available on my website. It's all in development. That you'll be able to get onto the website and actually work through it. And it teaches you how to eat for it, how to breathe for it, ground for it, how to manage your nervous system, natural remedies, how to unpick fixations, all that kind of tool stuff that helps with purely symptoms, because I think we need to do both.
All right. You emphasize self empowerment in your work. How does frequency balance help individuals reclaim their inner power or support clients in becoming their own healer or guide rather than depending solely on the therapist?
Okay, using the tools. Using these tools to help your symptoms is one of the best ways you can empower yourself to take charge of symptoms that often look and feel very scary, but actually in reality, they're not that bad. You can manage them, you can control them to a point by learning to do them as a daily routine or as an intervention when you need them. And the beauty of repeating and constantly repeating things like physically based or emotionally based tools is that repetition is what your brain clicks into and starts carving new pathways. It's called neuroplasticity, scientific fact. Carving new pathways to start helping your body fall into them and start changing habit. A lot of symptoms become habit. I mean, let me try and give you an example. Let's say I'm going to make this really kind of silly. Let's say you go for a walk every day, and it's actually not that silly because it's happened to me many times up my road. Let's say I go for a walk every day, and every time I pass a certain house, a dog rushes out and rushes at the gate and he barks at me furiously. And every time I get the same fright. It has happened to me.
Mhm.
But your body is retentive. So even if the dog doesn't rush out and bark at me, every time I walk past that gate, I'm going to feel slightly uneasy
Mm.
because my brain associates that with, oh, that dog's going to rush out and bark at me.
Mm.
Many of your mental symptoms become very familiar. So in certain circumstances, you have certain triggers and you start feeling the same thing. The beauty of using tools to counter them is to go, okay, when this happens, what tool can I use? So let's say it's some breathing exercises, which I could do with the dog scares me. So slow down. Right, let's get into some breath work. Calm the body down. So I start teaching the body that it doesn't have to just get into anxiety, stay in anxiety, make a production out of anxiety. I have a tool at hand immediately to intervene, slow it down, and calm that symptom down. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the tools are amazingly self-empowering because you take your power back from thinking that if you have a symptom flare up, you desperately need to see your therapist, phone your therapist, or take a pill. Yeah, some natural stuff to support your body is absolutely great, but taking extra mainstream meds, you don't have to. Take your power back by going, I've got a whole toolbox at my disposal. Which one should I use right now to help myself? So, to give you another example, I spoke in an ADHD festival in January this year, and I did quite a lot of exercises, a lot of parents of kids watching. It was really for helping kids.
Mhm.
And someone would put a question in saying, when my child comes home from school, they're often
Mhm.
very overwhelmed. They just want to cry and they don't get down to homework. Someone else had said, yes, my child cries as well. And suddenly this had become a big ADHD symptom. And oh, what do we do? And do we need extra medicine? No. If you think about it logically, your child has been at school. They probably had lunch, maybe at about 12 o'clock. They're coming home at 4 o'clock. What's the most natural thing to have gone down? The food's digested, it's gone. The makeup
Mhm.
of ADHD is quite frenetic anyway. The blood sugar's dropped. What do you need? A snack, a protein-based snack. That is your tool. Have that snack, do a bit of breathing, and you'll find that you're actually as good as new. So that's what I mean about taking your power back. It's not that you have to have extra meds or suddenly see your therapist again because something's gone madly wrong. It's recognizing that symptom and going, I have a tool and I can help myself.
All right. Can you share a success story or breakthrough moment that highlights the impact of frequency balance on someone struggling with anxiety, depression, or something like mood disorders, ADHD, etc.?
Yeah, gosh, this I left the question um, in because it's just such a big answer. Yes, there've been so many. There've been so many breakthrough moments and so many successes and so many fallbacks. So I'm going to just give you a bit of a general answer here.
Mm-hmm.
One of my clients, when I shut my practice last year, I recommended all my existing clients to another therapist who has been trained in my tool methods. Um, Gosh, what a breakthrough. From starting to work with her, it would be about 2.5 years ago now.
Wow.
And I would have worked with her for about 1.5 years. She had tremendous mood swings, and she had, I'll tell you about two of our biggest breakthroughs because they were just absolutely amazing. She pretty much verging on bipolar, very active sportswoman, into horse riding, well, training as an intern to become a professional trainer. And one of our breakthroughs was getting her through her riding finals because what she would do, and I only figured this out later, in bipolar, there's often a tendency to completely dissociate when you're under stress, which means is you literally almost try and leave your body. Um, we had an incident where she was involved in a car crash, wasn't her fault. By the time the police got there, she told them it was all her. And it wasn't because she actually couldn't remember what she said. Stress came and she just disappeared. Then we worked out that in her riding finals, she was literally pulling herself almost out of her body and she
Mm-hmm.
failed because she wasn't present and she wasn't with the horse. So we worked on tools just to keep her present, keep her grounded, keep her breathing, made sure she ate properly to keep her present in those finals so that her mind didn't pull her out of the stress. Because, when you're being judged, any competition, you're under stress. And it worked, and she passed, which was fantastic. And I hear from her other therapist now that she's actually gone and found herself a brand new job away from the familiarity of where she was training, because that was the first job, which is a huge step for someone who who is not always that stable, but she's used these tools. She just said to me, I will always remember you because I'm just going to think tools, tools, tools. And we also had an amazing breakthrough with her. She broke her arm in my first year of working with her. And she had an X-ray 2 months into, I think, the breakage, and nothing had healed. Nothing.
Yeah.
She was exceptionally worried. And it was in a session, and I suddenly said to her, wait a minute. Because in this, I keep talking about the spectrum, bipolar, ADHD, anxiety, depression, even a bit of body dysmorphia. Now, she had an aspect of that. It's all related. And I said to her, how are you feeling about that arm? Do you kind of want to get rid of it because it's not helping you at the moment? You're anxious about it? Or are you kind of working on, allowing it to heal? And she said, I just wish I could cut it off. So I said, yes. That would be an aspect of body dysmorphia, which is very related to this. And I said to her, okay, for the next week or two, what you're going to do for me is send that arm love every single morning, every single night. You're going to focus on it as healing. You're going to see it healing. You're going to visualize it healing. You're going to pay attention to it because you're trying to get rid of it. And our bodies are holistic mechanisms that can cause non-healing. So she did. Within 3 weeks, she had another X-ray, and it was 2/3 healed.
Wow.
So working this way, you do find that there are many, many things possible. I mean, I've also had clients who, my very severe bipolar client in the UK was running her Scottish estate by the time we'd finished working, which was amazing. I had a client also with bipolar who couldn't drive. Within a year of working together, she was back driving. She had epilepsy, and that was not epilepsy per se, but seizures from the tremendous anxiety that she used to experience. And after working together and using those tools day in, day out, the seizures stopped. So yeah, we've had a lot of breakthroughs, and they've been amazing. Trick is, though, people often fall back when they stop using the kind of tools that they need to. The body does adapt and the brain carves those new pathways, but it's a very wise thing to put them into a daily routine for yourself or have them at hand when you need them, because they keep helping your body stabilize.
Okay, what role does self-awareness play in achieving mental wellness through your modality?
Everything. If you, as a client, are not aware of what's going on in you, how can you help yourself heal?
Hmm.
The healing process is you engaging in it. We've developed a very strong culture in psychiatry, I suppose, and psychology, and I'm not judging, it's just an observation, that help lies on the outside, that you turn to someone else or you turn to a pill. And in reality, you be turning to yourself. So getting to know what's going on with you, getting to know what your symptoms are, where you can manage them, where you can't, how to eat for them, every bit of awareness like that, that is your power.
How can therapists integrate frequency balance into their existing practices without compromising their current methods or ethics?
I don't see frequency balance as a replacement for other therapies. There are wonderful therapies out there. I see it as an add-on or an alongside, kind of walking with, what you use. I mean, someone I've been training, or rather someone who came onto my last course teaching the tools, but I taught therapists and sufferers, which I thought was quite an interesting blend, and it worked very nicely. This particular therapist is a logotherapist. It's a wonderful therapy. It's rather mentally based, and my tools are quite physically and emotionally based. But he found it a wonderful add-on to what he does best. And it doesn't mean that he's changed what he does best. He just uses my stuff as extra ammo, if you want to put it that way. And I don't think that you would never compromise your current methods. You would just
Hmm.
use my method as and when they came up for clients. And I think you'd only really compromise your ethics unless, not unless, if you subscribe to the principle that mental health issues only exist in the brain and only can be treated there or via a pill, etc., then I don't think that my methods, I don't think they'd compromise your ethics. I just think they probably wouldn't suit you, you know. So for me, people to learn my stuff, I like for people to be open to new thought and open to new ways of working and open to learning new stuff, you know.
Few therapists interested in learning frequency balance. What kind of training or certification do you offer, and what are the key takeaways?
Okay, so here I have to admit I'm only at the beginning of looking at training. What I've started doing is training on the tools, because the physical, emotional, some mental tools are very accessible, very easy to learn, very logical. I think makes a lot of sense to people. Um, I haven't looked at training the deep-seated patterns yet, because that's going to involve on my side a lot of manual writing, which I have, I've been notating and putting down and writing and structuring and charts and all the rest of it for 5 years now. But to actually train that work, I'm going to look at that from about 2026 onwards. Certification, I will look at from then as well. And I think, learning the tools with my courses now, I'm blending sufferers and therapists, working very nicely. It'll be the same with my online course on my new website. It's frequencybalance.coza, which is in development. Take away from that, open up to new methods. Open up to new methods. I mean, even if you, for example, a cognitive behavioral therapist, you could learn to do what I do because it impacts your mind so profoundly. And that, I think it comes from my years of being a very general counselor and always working like that, never restricting myself to one particular way of working. My ethic has always been, you're in trouble, what can I do to help you? And I've explored a lot of different avenues in my work, and I put a lot of those into my tools. So I think that's the key takeaway. The key takeaway is to open minds, to go, I don't have to be restricted to one discipline. Be open to learning some new stuff and look at the effects, because they do work.
All right, my final question to you is what is your vision for the future of mental health care, and how do you see frequency balance playing a role in that evolution?
I would hope that frequency balance can play a huge role in its evolution, because we find it so difficult to find sources for our big mental health issues. If you do a lot of reading, we read articles, there's a lot of research into the physical body. We need to go beyond that. That is where you find a lot of your source material. And I think to be open to going beyond that, I mean, that's, I kind of got shown it just with clients showing me, and I paid attention and found something extraordinary, really, in terms of source material. So I would hope that we become a lot more open to that. I think that science is a wonderful thing, but I think I read an article by Arianna Huffington at one point who was talking about sort of over-sciencing science. I think we must be careful not to over-science science and be open to other things, and also be
Of course.
open to not just looking at a chemical to fix our mental health issues. Yes, they can be very useful. Yes, they can have terrible side effects. And yes, using more chemicals to fix the side effects of the first chemical is kind of where, a lot of medicine has been going, which I think is a crying shame. A lot of natural medication out there that can help as well. So I think we need to take our focus off the commercialism as well and really look at solutions. And if you go looking, and if you really go looking, there's a lot of stuff out there to find, which can, I think, help people in a far more productive way and also be of great healing use. We don't want to be living on chemicals entirely. I think also the principle of really engaging in your own healing very important, because we've developed this culture that you go to someone or you take a pill, or I can't cope, or, I have to. There's so much you can do yourself as well. So I'd love to see all of that come to play, and I'd love to be spearheading some of that and promoting it.
Yeah, sorry, there's actually a comment here. I'll just show this up to you quickly. This is from Zach. Hello from Toronto, Canada. I am just coming in and intrigued. Does your method help with OCD? What frequencies
Yes.
can help with OCD? Thank you.
Okay. I can't. The system is called frequency balance, because you are balancing. When you work with these deeply subconscious patterns, your pattern, which I'm not going to go into in detail because it'll be a bit confusing now. When you have OCD, one of your deeply subconscious patterns will be something I call the perfecter. There's an element of perfectionism in it, and you'll find that you are, in OCD, you're a very good pattern finder, as am I. But what I'd say to you to help your OCD, don't worry about frequencies or deep-seated patternings that you would need a therapist to take you through. I don't know what medication you've been on. I don't know if you had any help for it. One of the things you can do to help yourself when you start getting into that brain fixation is to breathe. And I'm actually going to give you my email address so I can send you a little exercise on how to unpick a fixation, because sometimes OCD is when the brain becomes fixated and it cannot get out of that rut. Generally speaking, while we're on this chat, do some breathing work. Get online, go onto YouTube, go and look at someone called Wim Hof. He's a Dutch guy, well known for getting into ice baths and all sorts of alternative cures. WIMHOF. Go and look at his 30 rounds of breathing and breath holds. It's so amazing what that kind of breath work does to the brain in terms of slowing it down and getting it out of that, what I call a fixation. So Wim Hof, YouTube, okay? And if you want my little frequency balance unpicking a fixation exercise, drop me an email on claire@frequencybalance.co.za. That's the South Africa, what would you call it, suffix, UB.ca, Canada, we co.za, so claire@frequencybalance.co.za, and I'll send you a short exercise. Obviously, if you want to work, I'm not primarily seeing clients now for long drawn out, because I'm focusing on courses. I'm actually writing a self-help book right now on all these tools, and that's all going to be available on my new website in the next 4 months or so. But if you're looking for like 1 to 3 sessions online, I absolutely offer that, and I could help you if you need.
All I gotta say there, thanks so much for your time.
That's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for yours.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sid. Lovely to